The first light of dawn slips through the mist like a quiet confession. It settles upon thatched roofs slick with dew, upon a crooked lane of mud and stone, upon a village still caught between darkness and waking. A single bell tolls from the chapel hill, slow, solemn, and patient, marking another day in a world that has forgotten the word comfort. The air is sharp, carrying the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. Somewhere, a cock crows. In narrow cottages, men and women stir beneath rough wool and fading straw, their bodies aching from yesterday's toil and from the cold that seeps through every wall. There are no clocks here, no gentle hum of morning convenience, only the rhythm of breath, of survival, of obedience to the turning seasons. Beyond the fields, the manor's shadow stretches long and indifferent. Its stones gleam with frost, its banners still as the dead. Within its hall, the Lord's hearth burns bright, though even that fire tastes of smoke and scarcity. Servants move in silence, carrying buckets, tending to beasts, preparing for a day that will never truly rest. It is a world built of hands and hunger. Bread is a labor, water is a journey, warmth is a privilege. Disease whispers through villages like winter wind, unseen and unpitying. Every life depends upon the mercy of weather, harvest, and fate, and each hour is paid for in sweat. Yet beneath the hardship lies a strange serenity. The fields glisten after rain, church bells gather the living and the lost, and as candles flicker in the dusk, voices rise in prayer, soft, uncertain, but enduring. The world is heavy, yes, but it breathes with purpose. To live here, one must belong to the rhythm of soil and sky. One must know the sound of iron upon anvil, the ache of fasting, the patience of sowing grain into frozen ground. To survive even a single day requires more than strength, it requires surrender. And so the sun lifts over the ridge, pale and watchful. Smoke curls from the chimneys. A shepherd calls to his flock. The church bell tolls once more. The Middle Ages have begun their day, and though the centuries between now and then are wide as oceans, the echo of their dawn still reaches us, the sound of a world that endured without rest, without comfort, and without escape. Here, in this place of candlelight and stone, one truth endures. You would not survive 24 hours, but you would never forget them. The story begins where the frost meets the flame, where toil meets faith, and where the human heart still dares to hope. Chapter 1. The Forge in the Field. Morning widens over the valley like a yawn from the earth itself, slow, stretching, silver-edged. The mist curls along the hedgerows, wrapping each branch in quiet secrecy. From the cottages rises the faint sound of stirring, the creak of wooden doors, the murmur of a prayer half-whispered, the hollow cough of an old hearth returning to life. In a world still shy of warmth, dawn is no gentle beginning. It is a summons. The fields wait always, the fields endless and unmoved by the needs of men. Their soil is dark and stubborn, stitched with frost, their furrows carved by generations of calloused hands, and yet, without them, nothing survives. A peasant bends low to the earth, his breath a pale ghost in the air. His tunic is coarse, his feet wrapped in scraps of leather, and the damp clings to him like a second skin. The plow creaks behind a weary ox, its eyes dull with effort. Step by step, they move man and beast bound by the same unyielding rhythm. The plowshare cuts into the earth with a sigh, and the scent of cold soil rises, rich and heavy. There is no conversation, no laughter, only the whisper of wind through the hedges, the soft thud of boots in mud, and the distant toll of the chapel bell calling time that few can heed. Every motion is a prayer of necessity, not for abundance, but for survival. By midday, the mist has burned away, and the sun, though pale, glints upon tools and sweat. Women carry baskets toward the commons, their hands red from scrubbing, their backs bowed from years of weight. Children scatter like sparrows, gathering twigs for the hearth or herding geese toward the stream. Their laughter is brief, a thin, bright sound swallowed by the wide silence of work. In the village's heart stands the blacksmith's forge. It hums with life, a rare music amid the monotony. The hammer's ring carries through the lanes, sharp, steady, alive with fire. Sparks leap like fireflies, casting golden light upon the smith's arms, which gleam with sweat and soot. His apron is scorched, his face lined with years of heat and hammering, and his hands are history itself. He shapes the life of others, horseshoes, nails, hinges, plowshares, tools for harvest and war alike. Every strike echoes the pulse of the village. Without the forge, no field would be tilled, no gate repaired, no soldier armed. Iron is the village's heartbeat, and the smith its hidden priest. Outside, an apprentice works the bellows, his arms trembling from the effort. The fire roars, orange and alive, licking at the iron until it glows white hot. The air smells of coal and sweat and metal, the scent of endurance. The rhythm is ancient, patient, eternal, fire, hammer, hiss, and smoke. And so, the hours pass. The forge fades to ember, the fields to shadow. The sun lowers itself behind the trees, and the sound of distant bells drifts once more across the land, the day's soft requiem. As evening settles, the peasants return, weary but wordless. They move like ghosts along the path, tools upon their shoulders, the mud thick upon their boots. In each cottage, smoke curls upward, carrying the scent of broth, onion, and fatigue. There is little food, a crust of bread, a ladle of pottage, perhaps a sliver of salt pork if fortune is kind. They eat in silence, eyes heavy with the ache of labor. The children curl close to the hearth. The elders mumble prayers for the harvest to come. In every room, faith mingles with hunger. Beyond the cottages, in the Lord's hall, supper is brighter, but not without shadow. A long table gleams beneath candlelight, lined with wooden trenchers and pewter cups. The air hums with quiet authority, servants pour wine, dogs sleep beneath the benches, and a minstrel plucks softly at a lute. Yet even here, comfort is fragile. The chill seeps through the stone, and behind every luxury lies the same dependence on those who work the land. For in truth, the forge and the field are two faces of the same survival. One burns, one endures. One demands strength, the other patience. And together they weave the fabric of life that stretches, thread by thread, through every rank of the realm. Outside, the night deepens. The stars appear faint candles against a velvet sky. Somewhere, an owl calls. The forge sleeps now, its heart of fire reduced to a soft red pulse beneath the ashes. The fields lie silent, waiting for the next dawn. In this stillness, a strange peace lingers. It is not comfort, the Middle Ages knew little of that, but a quiet acceptance. The villagers live not in defiance of hardship, but in rhythm with it. They rise when the bell tolls. They labor when the sun commands. They rest when darkness allows. To them, the world is not cruel. It is simply vast, unmoved, and sacred. A lone figure steps from his cottage, gazing toward the horizon. The cold brushes his face. The moon glows faintly through the mist. He listens to the distant cry of wolves, to the rustle of leaves, to the soft sigh of the earth breathing beneath frost. In that moment, the weight of his day fades into something almost holy. The world is still turning. The forge will wake again. The fields will call once more. And so the night settles, gentle, inevitable, endless. The fire dwindles, the ox sleeps, and the village, wrapped in silence, dreams not of tomorrow, but of endurance. For in this world, survival itself is a kind of prayer spoken in sweat, answered in soil, remembered in iron. Chapter 2. Under the Tolling Bell. The morning bell rings before the light arrives. Its sound drifts across the valley, soft at first, then swelling like a tide. It rolls over the thatched roofs, over the frozen fields, over the forest that still dreams. It is the same bell that has marked every hour, every birth, every burial, for as long as memory allows. In the Middle Ages, time does not belong to men, it belongs to God. And it is the bell that keeps his measure. The villagers rise, not by choice, but by chime. When it tolls at dawn, they kneel by habit, tracing the sign of the cross before they stand. When it tolls at noon, they pause, turning their faces toward the sound as though toward the sun. And when it tolls at dusk, they lower their heads again, surrendering the day to prayer. Each ring carries through the mist, through the smoke of hearths and the breath of cattle, through fields still bound by frost. It is not merely a sound, it is a boundary between labor and rest, between hunger and hope. At the heart of the village, the church rises from the earth like a confession. Its walls are rough stone, patched with lime and moss. The small windows catch the morning light like shards of stained glass, painting the air in soft colors that shift with the hour. The door creaks open to the scent of wax and cold stone. Inside, silence, reigns a silence alive with presence. A priest kneels before the altar, whispering words in Latin that few understand but all believe. His voice mingles with the sound of a single candle crackling. The altar cloth is worn, the chalice bears the marks of many years. Yet here, among relics and dust, eternity feels close enough to touch. Faith is not a matter of luxury. It is necessity as real as bread, as constant as weather. To doubt is dangerous, for the unknown is vast, and men cling to what promises meaning. The church gives shape to the invisible, teaching that every sickness, every storm, every death holds purpose. Outside, the villagers gather. The old, the weary, the sick, all step through the wooden door, dipping fingers into the stone font, crossing themselves with the cold water of blessing. They kneel upon rough planks, heads bowed beneath the sound of the bell. Some pray for the harvest, some for health, some for forgiveness they cannot name. Children fidget in the shadows, tracing the patterns of light upon the walls. Women whisper their petitions beneath their breath. The priest's words rise and fall like waves, ancient and unbroken. It is not understanding that moves them, it is rhythm. In a time when storms destroy crops and fever steals children overnight, faith is the only map of mercy they possess. It comforts what cannot be cured, it explains what cannot be changed. And yet, the bell does not ring only for worship, it rings for warning. When fire breaks in the village, it tolls fast and frantic, echoing over roofs and lanes. When a traveler dies upon the road, it tolls in slow measure, each peal heavy as earth upon a coffin. When plague comes, and plague always comes, the bell tolls without rest, until its sound becomes the village's pulse of grief. Through famine and flood, through endless seasons of toil, the bell never lies. It marks the fragile rhythm of survival. Far from the village, in the monastery upon the hill, the same rhythm governs another world, quieter, colder, devoted entirely to time. The monks rise in darkness, guided not by sight but by the weight of the hour. The bell calls them from straw mats, and they move in silence to the chapel. Bare feet against stone, torches flickering along the corridor, breath visible in the chill. They chant in unison, their voices low and even, merging into something larger than sound, a steady murmur of souls aligning with eternity. After matins, they labor. Some tend the gardens, some illuminate manuscripts by candlelight, their quills scratching softly upon parchment. The scent of ink and vellum fills the air. Others care for the sick in the infirmary, grinding herbs into salves, whispering prayers as they work. The monastery is a world within a world, ordered, patient, timeless. Its walls keep out the noise of sin and survival, but not the wind. The same cold that haunts the village seeps through its stones. Yet the monks do not curse it. They welcome hardship as proof of devotion, pain as passage toward grace. Outside, the sun finally breaks through the morning mist. The bell tolls again, terce. The villagers pause in their fields. The monks pause in their chants. The same sound binds both lives, though one prays for bread and the other for salvation. It is said that even birds learn its rhythm. The rooks fall silent when it rings, as though listening to some eternal command. Dogs stop barking, oxen lift their heads, and the world, for a heartbeat, stands still beneath its echo. By afternoon, smoke rises from hearths once more. The priest walks among his flock, blessing doorways with a sprig of holy water, murmuring comfort to the ill. In every home hangs a small cross carved from wood or bone. Its presence wards off what men fear most, the unseen. Faith weaves through every act, even those unspoken. Bread is baked with the sign of the cross. Seeds are sown with whispered prayers. A newborn's first cry is met not with joy alone, but with the urgent words of baptism for life. Here is too fragile to delay eternity. And when the sun begins to sink, the bell tolls again, vespers. Shadows stretch long across the road. The villagers gather once more at the church door, their breath faint clouds in the cooling air. The sky glows amber, then indigo. A single candle is lit, and the hymns begin low, slow, hauntingly beautiful. The day ends as it began in surrender, to God, to time, to the endless turning of both, for in this world, no moment is their own. Even silence is shared. Even darkness belongs to someone higher. Night comes quietly, folding the village into its arms. The bell tolls one final time. Compline. It is not a sound of fear, but of rest. The fields lie still. The forge sleeps. And beneath roofs of straw and slate, hearts beat in calm obedience to the eternal rhythm. Somewhere beyond the trees, a wolf howls. Somewhere in the monastery, a monk whispers the last prayer of the day. In manus tuas, Domine, commendo spiritum meum, into thy hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit. The words fade into silence. The bell ceases. Only the wind remains. And in that wind lingers the soundless truth of the Middle Ages that faith was not a choice, but the breath by which life endured. Chapter 3. The Healer's Hands. Dawn returns once more, pale, hesitant, veiled in mist. In the low cottages at the village's edge, a faint wailing cuts through the morning stillness. A child coughs, thin and wet, and a mother presses her hand to the fevered brow. The hearth burns weakly, the smoke creeping sideways into the room. There is no physician here, not in this place where coin is scarce and illness is older than memory. Yet there is one who comes when hope is faint, the village healer. She walks the narrow lane at sunrise, her basket swaying with bundles of dried herbs, yarrow, sage, wormwood, and wild garlic gathered from the woods. Her cloak smells faintly of smoke and pine resin. Her fingers bear the stains of sap and salve. The villagers call her good wife in daylight and witch in whispers. But when sickness comes, the same hands that cast suspicion become their only mercy. Her cottage sits apart, beside a stream that sings softly to itself. Its walls are patched with clay and straw. Its roof drips moss into the guttered earth. Inside, shelves sag beneath jars and bundles, the small apothecary of a woman who has learned the forest's language. Here are crushed rose hips for fever, thyme for wounds, willow bark for pain, and dried nettle to stir the blood. Every cure carries the scent of the soil. She kneels beside the sick child now, murmuring a prayer before touching the pulse. Her voice is quiet, measured, familiar, a rhythm older than medicine. She mixes a draught from her basket, pours it into a wooden cup, and blows gently upon its surface before offering it. "Drink," she whispers, "and rest." There is no certainty in her craft. Each remedy is half knowledge, half faith. She has seen men die of a cough and others live through wounds that should have killed them twice. She does not question why. The body, to her, is a wild garden. Some flowers bloom, others wither, and all return to the same earth. Outside, the priest passes by on his morning round, his eyes averted from her door. He does not forbid her work, for even the church knows that faith alone cannot grind fever into calm. But neither does he bless her trade. Between their worlds lies a quiet truce, sealed not by doctrine, but by necessity. For though Scripture names miracles, the village needs medicine. At the manor, the Lord's steward sends for the healer when his master's wife falls ill. She climbs the hill, basket in hand, the path slick with rain. The air grows colder near the stone walls. The dogs bark as she enters. The hall is filled with smoke and the sharp tang of tallow. She bows low, her eyes to the floor, and is led to the lady's chamber. The lady lies pale against her pillows, her lips dry, her breath shallow. The room smells of rosewater and decay. Candles burn low in pewter holders, their light trembling against the tapestries. The healer sets down her basket and speaks softly, asking questions that no one else dares. When the fever began, what she last ate, whether dreams disturb her rest. Then she unwraps her herbs, mint for breath, valerian for sleep, and elderflower steeped in honeyed wine. The servants watch her hands move, half fearful, half hopeful. She works slowly, reverently, as though each gesture is a prayer. Outside the chamber, the priest mutters his own. Both believe in healing. Both fear what lies beyond it. By evening, the fever breaks. The lady sleeps, her skin damp but cool. The healer gathers her things, refusing coin, only asking for bread to take home. Gratitude is spoken in low voices. She departs before the hall's great bell tolls midnight. Back in her cottage, she lights a single candle and washes her hands in cold water. Her fingers are cracked, her knuckles stiff. She whispers names to herself, those who were cured, those who were not, as though memory itself might keep them from the grave. In the Middle Ages, the healer's art is both gift and danger. Knowledge is mistrusted, especially when it blooms outside the church, yet the poor cannot live without it. Some say her touch drives out sickness. Others say it invites demons. The truth lies somewhere between, in the patient rhythm of care, in the scent of boiling herbs, in the simple act of sitting beside the dying when no one else will. Far from the village, in the monastery's infirmary, healing takes another form. The monks there work in silence, guided by the writings of Galen and the light of faith. Their walls are lined with manuscripts copied in brown ink, De Natura Hominis, Herbarium Apulei, and the Regimen Sanitatis. Brother Thomas bends over a bed where an old pilgrim lies. He lays a hand upon the man's brow, whispering prayers between measurements of pulse. A bowl of crushed herbs sits beside him, the scent of lavender and vinegar rising in the cold air. He records each symptom in careful script, believing that every breath teaches the body's mystery anew. Here, too, healing is half science, half soul. The monks tend to wounds with wine and honey, mix poultices from comfrey root, and bleed those who burn with fever. They pray, not only for the body's peace, but for the spirit's surrender. For them, recovery is grace, and death, if it must come, is God's gentler remedy. And still, beyond the monastery and the manor, most illness meets no cure. The fields breed fever, the wells carry disease, and hunger weakens the heart long before any herb can save it. Yet somehow life continues. Babies cry, women sing, old men mend their tools and tell stories by the fire. The healer walks her path again, season after season, her basket filled with green hope from the woods. In spring, she gathers nettle and dandelion to cleanse the blood. In summer, she dries lavender and mint to sweeten the air. In autumn, she digs burdock roots, her hands black with soil. In winter, she burns sage to keep the sickness from the door. The rhythm of her craft follows the rhythm of the earth itself. And when plague visits, as it always does, she does not flee. She moves from house to house, face veiled in cloth soaked with vinegar, tending to the dying when even family turns away. She lights candles for them, washes their faces, closes their eyes when breath has gone. Her basket empties faster than she can fill it. The bell tolls day and night. Still, she walks. Still, she works. Still, she whispers prayers for souls she cannot save. When the sickness finally fades and spring returns, the villagers rebuild what they can. They clean the wells, bury the dead, and look to the forest again for healing. The healer walks among them, older now, her hair streaked with gray. Few speak her name, but all meet her eyes with quiet respect. She knows the truth better than any, that life is fragile, mercy rare, and healing when it comes is never hers alone. At dusk, she sits beside the stream that sings past her door. The water catches the fading light, carrying reflections downstream like passing souls. She dips her hand into the current, feeling the chill rush through her veins. For a moment, she thinks she can hear the echo of every heartbeat she has tried to save, faint, far away, but still alive. The forest stirs, whispering through the leaves. Somewhere beyond the fields, the bell tolls once more, and in its echo, she feels peace, not triumph, not certainty, only peace. The healer's hands rest, open and empty, in her lap. The candle burns low. Outside, night gathers its cloak of silence, and the world, for now, is still. Chapter 4 of Bread and Burden. The morning begins with hunger. It always does. Before the roosters cry, before the forge awakens, before the bell tolls its first note, there is the hollow ache that reminds them they live by bread, and bread alone is never certain. In the low cottages, the fire is coaxed to life with trembling hands. The last of yesterday's embers are buried deep in ash, sleeping until breath revives them. Smoke curls upward, slow and gray, and with it rises the faint scent of barley, coarse, bitter, sustaining. Upon the rough-hewn table, a woman kneads dough. Her hands, red from cold water, press and fold with practiced rhythm. The flour is not white but brown, ground from rye and oat and whatever grain could be spared. A few grains of salt, a whisper of yeast if fortune smiled. The dough cracks as it's shaped, yet her touch is patient, her gaze steady. For this bread is not comfort, it is survival made visible. Outside, a thin mist lingers over the fields. The men trudge toward their work, carrying sickles and hope in equal measure. The oxen move slowly, ribs faint beneath hide. Winter's shadow has not yet lifted, and the land demands more than it gives. The woman slides her loaf into the small clay oven, its heat drawn from yesterday's wood. The smell fills the air, earthy, honest, almost holy. In a world of endless toil, that scent is prayer enough. By midday, the village stirs in quiet industry. The sound of grinding fills the mill by the river, stone against stone, steady and relentless. Each turn of the wheel crushes grain into dust, and each handful of flour holds the memory of harvests past. The miller stands watchful, his clothes powdered white, his hands rough from years of labor. Flour drifts about him like a pale fog, settling on his beard, his lashes, his breath. No one eats without his work, and so his burden is both gift and curse. The villagers bring their sacks, their measures of grain wrapped in cloth. They wait in patient lines, their faces hidden by scarves against the chill. Payment is not always in coin, sometimes in a share of the flour itself, sometimes in nothing more than thanks. Yet the mill never rests. It hums with the pulse of need. Beyond the mill, a baker in the manor's kitchen stokes his fire. His bread will feed not laborers, but lords. He works with finer flour, sifted soft and pale as snow. Eggs and honey are mixed into his dough, almonds crushed, spices rare and fragrant. His loaves are shaped like crowns, their crusts brushed with milk for shine. And though they feed the same hunger, their scent speaks of privilege. He glances toward the open window, where smoke from the village drifts upward. He knows their bread too dark, heavy, rough as the earth itself. In the stillness between kneading and baking, he wonders if one hunger feels much different from another. Evening draws near. The fields quiet. The forge fades to ember. The families gather once more around the hearth, where bowls of pottage steam in the dim light. The stew is thin barley, cabbage, perhaps a sliver of salted fish. The bread is torn into pieces and shared by hand, each bite deliberate, each crumb precious. No one speaks much. Words waste air when bellies are empty. The children eat first, as is the old rule of kindness. The elders follow, chewing slowly, grateful for warmth. The meal ends with silence, not for lack of things to say, but for reverence. For to eat here, in the Middle Ages, is to understand both grace and fear. Every loaf is the memory of famine, every harvest a fragile promise. A single bad season can erase a village. Too much rain rots the fields, too little turns them to dust. And so they live from one season to the next, measuring time not in years but in the thickness of their bread. When the crops fail, they turn to what the earth still offers. Roots boiled soft, weeds dried for soup, bark ground into bitter meal. In the worst of years, when famine walks like a shadow, they eat what the wind allows, grass, nettles, the thin broth of hope, and through it all, they pray. The bell tolls in those times, not with rhythm, but with sorrow. Its sound carries over the fields where nothing grows, calling the faithful to endurance. The priest speaks of divine testing, of hunger as purification. The healer walks quietly among the weak, offering herbs that fill the air with scent, if not the stomach. Still, some endure. Somehow, they always endure. In the manor above, the Lord eats from silver. His table gleams with roasted meats, with trenchers of white bread, with cups of red wine warmed by fire. Yet even there, hunger holds power. The rich fear scarcity like the poor fear sin. The Lord knows that should the harvest fail, his wealth will buy him less than the peasant's patience. For no coin can fill a field, and no rank can coax wheat from stone. So, in his hall, as the minstrels sing, he glances toward the window. The night beyond is vast, cold, and humbling. He lifts his cup, not in celebration but in quiet caution. For all his gold, he eats by the same mercy as those who bow to him. Down in the village, the bread from the morning has hardened. A child soaks it in broth, pressing it with his spoon until it softens. The mother watches, her face unreadable, her hands resting upon her knees. She has seen winters worse than this one, and she knows hunger is a guest who never leaves for long. Yet even amid want, there is beauty. The scent of baking on feast days, the sight of ripening barley beneath a summer sky, the taste of honey after months of salt and ash. These moments are the small miracles of endurance, fleeting, golden, enough. When Easter comes, the fields shimmer once more with promise. Seeds are sown, songs are sung. The villagers walk barefoot through the furrows, pressing the earth with faith and memory. The air is filled with bird song and the smell of turned soil. The children chase butterflies between rows, their laughter thin but bright. The woman who kneads her dough each morning looks up at the sky and smiles. The clouds are kind today. She whispers a prayer not for wealth, but for balance, just enough rain, just enough sun, just enough strength to see another harvest. For that is all life asks here. To keep moving, to keep sowing, to keep believing that the soil remembers mercy. At dusk, when the sky burns gold over the horizon, she takes her last loaf from the oven. The crust is cracked, the smell fills the air. She tears a small piece and places it on the sill for the spirits of the departed, an old custom, half faith, half gratitude. Then she sits by the hearth and watches the fire settle. The flames reflect in her eyes, steady, unhurried, eternal. Outside, the night folds around the village like a cloak. Somewhere, a bell tolls in the distance, slow, patient, faithful. It is the same sound that marks every day, every hunger, every hope. And though bread remains humble, it carries the weight of their world, the burden of survival, the grace of simplicity, and the quiet truth that even in the hardest times, to eat is to endure, and to endure is to live. If the echoes of the Middle Ages stirred something within you, journey further into its shadows and secrets. Subscribe for more tales whispered by candlelight where history still breathes in the dark.